afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Narinder Hall, Vice President of Finance, Programs and Administration at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. Welcome to this afternoon's Export and Procurement presentations. It is my pleasure to introduce you to organizations who are partners in the innovation space here in Ontario. Each is either a department or an agency of the provincial or federal government or a not-for-profit organization. Together, they offer innovators and entrepreneurs a variety of programs, opportunities, and advice to help them develop their businesses and get their products and services to the right market. With a renewed focus on exporting and procurement opportunities from both provincial and federal governments, it is our pleasure to offer today's series of experts. Our first presentation this afternoon is from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Louie DiPalma, Director SME Programs, will speak to us on export programs designed to meet the needs of small and medium-sized companies. If you have any questions, there should be an opportunity to ask them at the end of the presentation. Please join me in welcoming Louie DiPalma.
Narinder, thank you very much for the introduction. So folks, I'm here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a program that we run, and we run it in partnership with the Province of Ontario and the Government of Canada. We're quite fortunate. Both levels of government provide support and funding for the program. The program has been around since 2008. When we started the program, at that time it was called the Export Market Access Program. We flipped the name of the program in April 1st of 2012 to Global Growth because we added a second stream to it. So we have two streams to the program, the Export Market Access Program plus the Ontario Exporters Fund, and I'll tell you a little bit about both. There is a website that you can go to get more detailed information, so I'll give you the highlights. If I start telling you stories, give me the sign, because I'll talk too much if I tell too many stories. So I'll try and stick to the high points of the program. So as I said, the program started in 2008, and so far we have been able to help just about 800 companies access foreign markets. The intent of the program is to provide some funding to companies. It is a grant program. It's a non-repayable grant program. And there is an application process, as you can appreciate. So we provide support with the funding to companies to access foreign markets. And it can take a couple of forms. When we're talking about the Export Market Access Program, the majority of companies that come to us for assistance are going to trade shows. So 99% of all the folks that fill out an application want to go to a trade show. But 1% want to do what we call an outgoing mission. So what the company has done, they have arranged business-to-business meetings in a foreign jurisdiction, and they're looking for us for that kind of support to get them into those business meetings. So this is how the program works. We'll see if I'm good with the slides. Okay, so there it is, Export Market Access. Let's talk a little bit about the eligible applicants. So to be eligible for the program, you have to have between 5 and 500 employees. There is a bit of a slide on the 5. If you have between 3 and 4, we'll take a look at the merits of your application. If you have 501, unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible for the program. There has to be a minimum sale of $500,000. And what we do to verify that is we collect your financial statements. Okay, they don't go anywhere. I look at them, the staff look at them. If I don't understand them, the controller in the office may look at them, but we do not share them with anybody else. We treat them as a confidential document. And they have to be prepared by an external third party with Canadian accounting credentials. So it can't be your own in-house staff that are preparing those statements. And what we ask for is the 2 last complete fiscal years that you've completed in your operation. You have to be registered as a company in Canada and in Ontario, and you have to be in operation for at least 2 years. So if you've only been in operation for 1.5 years, you wouldn't be eligible. If you're in that position where you've purchased an existing company and you've been in operation under your own banner, let's say for a year, as long as you have the financials of the company that you purchased, we will consider those financials for the second year. So we do allow that to happen. Now, those goods and services that you're looking for support to embed into foreign markets, they must be produced here in Ontario. Okay, so if you're bringing products in from Asia and there's no value add to those products, then you're not going to be eligible. An example would be, if you're bringing in these little gizmos here, and what you're doing to them is you're packaging them up and then you're redistributing them, you wouldn't be eligible because there's not a value add to the packaging. If you're bringing in an electronic gizmo like this, and you've got kind of the hardware, the outer shell, and you're doing all the programming in-house to make the gizmo actually work, that's terrific value add. You would be eligible for the program. So if you're asking for support under this program, you can't be receiving funds from any other public source, okay, unless it comes from MEDDE, because that is the funder of the program, in addition to FedDev Ontario also funds us. Okay, so now there are 4 areas that you can receive funding for under the program. But before I get into the 4 areas, let me tell you how the program works. You complete an application. And when we first started, by the way, what we thought we would do is we would hang our shingle out, on the website. We'd go out, do some presentations like we're doing today, and then we would sit back and receive the applications from companies. What we learned very, very quickly is that you folks are very, very good at what you do. You're very, very good with your businesses. Unfortunately, you're not very good at filling out applications because it's not your business. So after the first 2 or 3 months that we were open and we hadn't approved any applications, we realized there was a flaw in our process. So what we did is we created a consulting service, free consulting service amongst our staff. So if you're looking for a question, you need anything answered, we actually have on our website, call us first, tell us what it is that you want to do, and we will work with you to complete that application. We will actually help you get that application review ready. Because once it's review ready, we can send it out to the external review team, and we can get you a decision in a fairly quick pace. So let me tell you some of the timelines. If you send us an application today, within 24 to 48 hours, someone at the office will review your application, and if we think it's a good application and we want to work with you, we will send you an email back saying to you, please adjust these areas. Because if you adjust those areas, the application becomes review ready. If you accept that email as something that is very good, and you do what's in the email and you send that application back to us, roughly within 12 business days, we'll actually get you a decision. So we work at the speed of business. We do like to have companies give us at least 30 business days, though, to actually work through your application, because it's not always as clean and neat as I'm describing it today. There's always some gray areas that we've got to work with the company on. So and sometimes it takes a few back and forth to get that application review ready. Sometimes, some of the information that we're asking for may not be readily available at the company, so it does take some time. So please, 30 business days prior to your planned event, then we can process your application and get your decision. Some of the rules around, what's eligible and not eligible in terms of costs. What we did in April 1st of 2012, we changed the program a bit. Because what we noticed is there were some areas that weren't eligible for funding. For instance, if anything was prepaid prior to getting the decision from the program, it wasn't eligible under the way we operated. And what companies were telling us was, but if I'm going to a trade show, and as I said earlier, 99% of all the applicants that come into us want to go to trade shows. Sometimes they have to book, or many times you have to book a year in advance, and you're paying for things. So we said, as soon as you do that, you're eliminating our major expense as being an eligible expense. So what we did is we said, okay, with respect to that registration of the booth space, you can pay for it prior to even application submission. Not a problem, it remains eligible. We also did something with airfare, because companies were saying to us, sometimes, we're waiting. We're getting closer to the date of the actual event that we want support for. So by the time we get a decision, we're having to pay a pretty high airfare because we're getting too close. So is there something you can do for us? So what we did on that mode is this. We said, as long as you submit the application, so once you click the submit button and it comes to us, at that point you can go out and purchase your airfare as well. Cut your best deal, not a problem. Okay? As long as there's an understanding that if you're not approved, then the program wouldn't be, on the hook for any of those costs. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about eligible activities. Direct contacts really speaks to the trade shows and the outgoing missions. So what are some of the things that are eligible under the program? I talked about space. I didn't talk about booth rental, so booth rental would be eligible under the activities. Airfare, 2 economy class airfare, to the jurisdiction that you're going to. Now, if you want to fly business class, that's fine. You can do that, but we'll only cover up to the economy class version. So what you would put in the budget in the application, you would put the economy class quote, and you wouldn't put in the business class quote, okay, recognizing that we'll only cover that portion. We also cover things such as booth panels. So you're going off to a trade show like you see here today. You see some of these really nice banners, these pop-up banners that are there. The program will cover the cost of those banners if you're approved, and they'll also cover the cost of the booth shells. So if you've got a much more comprehensive shell scheme and you're making those large panels, we will cover those panels as well. We also will cover in-market translation. So if you need translation to a jurisdiction you're going to, the program will cover that as well. And this is what we ask. So when you fill out the application, we want to know a little bit about what you're doing. Where are you going? Why are you going there? What do you hope to achieve by going there? So what are the results that you're looking for, both in terms of sales that you think you're going to make and how that's going to translate back here in Ontario to jobs that you may create. We're also taking a look at how many leads do you think that you're going to get out of that activity that you then can work down to those really good leads that you can actually make a sale with. So those are the three things that we'll look at. The other area that is eligible under direct contacts is product certification. So if you've got a product and you want to break into the EU, and it's an electronic type product and you need CE markings for it, the program will help you with the product testing to get that certification. Okay, not with all the other, the legal work and all that behind and the filing of the paper, hiring of a consultant to do those kinds of things for you, but the actual testing where you're taking your product to a lab to meet that CE markings. Now, there is a little bit of a twist on that. What we do ask, though, is we want to see some pre-orders. So has there been any pre-sales? So is that what's holding up the sale into the EU market, the fact that you don't have the CE markings? If that's the case, that's the type of company that we're looking for when they're asking for the product certification. The other thing that under direct contacts that we see a lot is shipping. Folks like to ship their samples. Folks like to ship their booths to the trade show. We will pick up the cost of that. So how it works is this. You fill out an application, we send you the email, you send it back to us, hopefully it's 100% accurate. And by the way, there's only been one company to date out of the 800 that we've approved that we've never had to send an amending email back to change the application to get it review ready. So this, so it tells you when I said, you're not very good at applications, that's a stat I carry with me. So that's the truth that I'm speaking, okay? So, and that company is on my wall, okay? It's the only company out of 800. So what happens is you send us the application back, we get your decision. Once we get your decision, we'll send you out an approval letter. You sign the approval letter, you send it back to us. We then will give you 50% of the approved amount. Upon completion of the actual activity, you're required to send us what we call a financial reconciliation report, which is really the final report, but you're only going to complete one phase of it. And in that reconciliation report, you're going to give us, there's the proposed budget that you put in your application. It will automatically carry over into the reconciliation report, and then you will tell us what you actually spent. How did you actually spend your money in relation to the budget that you created in the report? That's a bit of a due diligence for us because we've got to obviously track money. It is public funds, so we have to be careful on how it's expended. And then what we ask for is we ask for your invoices and we ask for your proof of payment on those expenses. And we started this reconciliation report, and it's due 90 days after your actual event that we support through the program, because companies were telling us, you're giving us a year to put in the final report. By the time the year rolls around, the person that actually filled out the application may no longer be with the company. The other problem small companies were having was the actual invoices and receipts. They were probably in a box someplace in a basement, very hard to find. So when we started this 90-day, we're finding that we're getting the invoices and receipts much easier. The companies seem to be much happier with it. And that has a bearing on whether you're going to get the full approved amount. Because if you can't demonstrate that you spent the dollars in accordance with the approval that was made and you can't show that proof of payment, then we're not going to pay you the full value of the approved grant. So really important, you keep your invoices, keep your receipts, send them in to us so that you can get full value for the grant that was approved for you. Okay, now under marketing tools, what we do there is mainly companies are asking for promotional material. So we will help you with the design of brochures. We will help you with the printing of those brochures. If you're making a video, we don't help with the actual making of the video, but we will help with reproduction of that video. Under the marketing tools as well, if you're going to a trade show and they have, you can buy advertising space in the show guide, we will assist with the advertising space in that show guide to try and get you maximum exposure. So what companies have said to us with the support is that allows them to, I guess, show a much more professional face when they're going to these events, because now they have a little extra money in order to put into the type of booth that they're going to build, the number of staff that are going to be at that show, the types of promotional material that they're developing for the show. Because some companies have told us that prior to the program, they may have just tried to do their printing in-house, or they may have gone down to their local printing shop, which there's nothing wrong with that. But now what they're doing, they're actually going to people that can design their material a much more professional look, which drives more people to their booth. It also allows them to get a more favorable spot at the show. Like, you could be at the back corner someplace where nobody travels, or you can be where, in a path where there's a lot of people coming by. And what we've been told is that the extra funding that we're providing them allows them to do just that. So it seems to be helping them in terms of connecting with the proper leads and making some of the sales down the road. Now, under market research, there is a component there where if you're looking to develop a market entry plan, we will help with that. There is a $5,000 cap. So if you're coming to us and you've got a $30,000 market research proposal and you're looking for $15,000, if you get approved, the maximum that we will give you is $5,000. And the reason why we went to a cap, when we first opened the program, we didn't have a cap, but what we were getting was a whole bunch of $60,000 market research proposals. And they were asking for $30,000 from the program. The program is very much results driven. So we thought, well, this is really good that we're going to have all these wonderful market entry plans, but we're not sure how many results are going to be driven from that within the 12-month period that we capture. So we readjusted the program because we really are looking for results. So when you fill out your application, speaking of results, there is a results table. So you're going to tell us in that table, what do you expect to gain in terms of export sales from the program? We'd also like you to tell us how you arrived at that number. And that's very important for the reviewers, because if you don't tell us how you arrived at the number, it's really hard for us to make a determination on your application. For instance, I talked to a company last week. They're a $1.5 million company. They asked for our support to go to one trade show, and they indicated they were going to make $3 million as a result of going to that show. That's terrific if it works for you. But it's pretty hard to double your sales from one show. But if you have the logic behind that, please tell us, because if I'm just sending that through to the reviewers, they question that and the application doesn't go well for them. Another suggestion I would give you is that when you're filling out an application, get someone in your organization that really understands your business, understands what you're trying to do, because then that application process goes much, much quicker for them. Okay, if you give it to someone who really doesn't understand your business, is answering the phones all day and then trying to fill out the application, it becomes problematic for them. So if you have a marketing person, or you have someone that really, is the person that's trying to open up those export markets for you, that's the person that I would have fill out the application for you. Okay, under foreign bidding, and I see I'm at 12 minutes, so I'm going to go a little faster. Under foreign bidding, we've never had an application for anything like this ever in the program. Okay, so really what it was designed for was large construction companies, engineering firms, management firms that are bidding unsolicited bids. And since we've never had any call for this, because we can work it through an outgoing mission anyways, we actually thought of dropping this section, but we left it in just in case. So I won't dwell on that piece at all. There is a strategic funding component to be eligible for this. You can access up to $60,000 from the program. By the way, the maximum under a regular grant is $30,000, but if you qualify for strategic funding, you can get up to $60,000. To qualify for the strategic funding, you have to be known to us as a company, so you have to be a repeat client of the program. You had to have done very well in the program. In other words, if you said you were going to do 500 in sales, you did 500,000 in sales. If you said to us, I'm going to do 500 in sales, and you did 10,000 in sales, and then you come back to us for strategic funding, that application will not go well for you. Also, you must be nominated from someone from the Ministry of Economic Development and Employment. because they are the funders of the program, along with the federal government. But this piece here, you need a nomination from them to be eligible for the program. And they have wonderful business advisors that you can contact that will help you through the program. By the way, I should say it's an excellent partnership between us and the province and also the federal government, because there are staff out there in both of those organizations that will work with you, also help you with those applications to make sure that you get them review ready and in a timely manner to meet your business requirements. Okay, getting started, go to www.exportaccess.ca. All the information is there. There's a guide there about what is eligible, what is not eligible. There's also an online guide for how you get to the online application form so that you can fill it out. But what we encourage people to do is when you get to the site, just call us. If you have any questions at all, call me, and the number is there on the site, so I'm not going to give it out tonight. And also there's a colleague of mine, Leslie Cole. You can call Leslie Cole. She will also help you answer all your questions and help you work through the different aspects of your application so that we can get it review ready. We'll also do something else for you because we don't want to waste your time. If you call us in advance and you tell us what it is you want to do, you tell us about your company, you tell us how you're sourcing your products, you're telling us, what you hope to achieve. If we think, given the experience we've had with the external review team, that your application really isn't going to go anywhere, we're going to tell you. We're going to tell you right away, because there's no sense putting you through an application process if we get a sense that it's not going to work out for you. So we try and give advice like that. We can't be 100% accurate because we're not the final decision makers, but we will help you the best we can so you're not wasting time filling out an application. Especially if you're just not eligible, we'll tell you. Okay? Now, the Ontario Exporters Fund, same idea. We're trying to help companies break into these foreign markets. The difference here is you can access up to $80,000 to hire an export manager. And it comes in the form of two $40,000 per year that we will give you for that export manager. To be eligible for this, same as before, 5 to 500 employees. You have to be operating in Ontario, 2 years. Now, there is a bit of a twist here, as you see from that slide. You have to be in one of the priority sectors from the Ministry of Economic Development and Employment. You must be in those priority sectors. If you're outside of those priority sectors, and you can see there advanced manufacturing, aerospace, building products, and so on, then you're not eligible for this component of the fund. But you will still be eligible for the export market access side. So if you call me and you say, I'm in the food business, I make pizzas, and you tell me you're in advanced manufacturing because you have some really nice machinery that makes those pizzas, these frozen pizzas that you're shipping out to other parts of the world, you're not going to be eligible for this component of the fund. But what we will do is steer you to the export market access side that will help you with going to trade shows or going to B2B meetings, but unfortunately we can't help you with actually the export manager. Whoops, went too fast. Now, in order to access this fund, you must have a reference from the Ministry of Economic Development and Employment, and it has to be from their international trade branch. You will work with their regional business advisors as well, but once you submit the application, if you don't have someone from the international trade branch that is vouching for your application, we will see that. If we like the application, we will make the connections for you. That's the other thing. If you're looking for a government reference and you don't have one, you call us. We will hook you up with a government reference. They're absolutely terrific. Companies call me back and say, thank you very much for setting me up, because not only will they help you with this application process, they will help you with all kinds of other programs that they operate, and they can give you all kinds of guidance and assistance in breaking into a foreign market. Just to go back to here, same thing about 2 most recent fiscal years. You have to have $2 million in general comprehensive liability insurance. That applies to both programs, by the way. It has to be $2 million. If you have $1 million, you're not eligible. You obviously have to be in compliance with all government laws and regulations. Okay, now the maximum you can hire this person is for 24 months. As I said earlier, it's up to $80,000. You have to have annual sales between $1.5 million and $20 million. If you're under the 1.5 or you're over the 20 million, then you're not going to be eligible for the program. And your current export sales have to range between 10 and 50%. So if your current export sales are 9% in relation to your overall sales, you're not going to be eligible. If they're at 55%, you're not going to be eligible. What we do though, if your majority of export sales are going to the U.S. market and you're looking for the export manager to help you break into Asia or Europe or South America, we will discount the U.S. sales because we understand that a lot of our companies do export to the U.S. because that's usually the first stepping stone that people go to. So we will take a look at that for you. So just give us a call and we'll sort out those numbers with you in advance. So again, you're not wasting your time to go through an application process. Okay, so again, how to apply? www.ontarioexporters.ca. All the guides are there. If you need support and advice, call us at the office. And I'll stop there and have some time for questions. Are there any questions at all?
Hi, my name is Renee Pardo. I called you last September. We get 10% royalties, and so it doesn't show up as $1 million revenues. It shows up as a royalty percentage.
A royalty?
Yeah, so
Well, the royalty.
indirectly, the royalty at 10% is worth over $1 million, but we don't qualify because we don't show $1 million revenue. We show a royalty.
So you don't classify the royalty as revenue?
Well, the royalty is, but because it's less than $1 million based on 10%, the equivalent would be $1 million, but the royalty rate and the amounts are less than $1
I
million.
see. In terms of your annual revenue. Unfortunately, we do take a look at annual revenue, and it can't be rolled over 2 fiscal years. So
fine.
whatever the royalty is in that fiscal year that you're doing your financial statement, that's what we look at.
But can we multiply that by 10 if it's a 10% of sales?
Why don't we talk offline? Okay,
you.
because obviously we're going to have to do some math together. Okay, so let's do that. We'll do that offline, and I'll see if we can help you. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, folks, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Louie for his presentation and taking the time to join us today for this for the export presentation. We're going to take a 1-minute break as we set up the stage for the next speaker, and we'll be back. Thank you. So good afternoon. For those of you joining us, I'm Narinder Dahal, Vice President of Finance, Programs and Administration here at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. An important part of Discovery is helping Ontario companies, institutions, and researchers make meaningful and lasting business connections both at home and internationally. Today, we're delighted to have Dr. Allison Young, Senior Trade Commissioner, International Business Development from the Canadian Consulate General in New York. Allison will speak to us about Canadian technology accelerators and the opportunity for Canadian high-growth technology companies in the U.S. market. If you have any questions, there should be an opportunity to ask them at the end of the presentation. Please welcome Allison Young.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. As I was introduced, I'm Allison Young, and I'm the Senior Trade Commissioner in New York. That means that I work at our Consulate General in New York for the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade for the federal government, just to get you situated with who I am. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service a few years ago decided to get into the Accelerator business. It started in San Francisco and has since migrated to New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. And what we started to realize, somewhat off of the Y Combinator model, is that we needed to support our entrepreneurs more comprehensively in global export markets, and that trade missions for a few days at a time really wasn't cutting it. We needed to do something in a much more robust fashion. About 3 years ago, the Consulate General in San Francisco opened up a number of accelerators, and New York followed suit about a year and a half ago, and we've also opened up another accelerator for health IT in Philadelphia. And what these accelerators are doing is a little bit different from the Y Combinator model, which tried to bring in and intensively educate entrepreneurs for 3 months at a time. We don't do that. Our program in New York is a 3-month-long program, but what we're actually doing is bringing companies in who have already been vetted, as it were, in the Canadian pipeline in terms of their business model, and we're bringing them in for a market acclimatization program for about a week in New York, and they stay for about 3 months and are housed for digital media in a accelerator in New York. And that accelerator is called General Assembly, where they become, for digital media, part of a ecosystem for tech. We take in 6 companies at a time for 3 months, so 24 companies a year. And what the taxpayer is paying for there is the $300 per company per month, so $1,800 for each cohort times 4 per year, basically. And the companies come down and have to fund their own living expenses. They have to get across the border, deal with however it is they get across the border as business visitors to promote their businesses in New York. But we provide basically the accelerator business space and tech ecosystem for them to access. Now, you might be wondering, why New York City? Are we doing digital media? What's going on in New York City? A few years ago, after the financial meltdown in 2008, Mayor Bloomberg decided that he needed to diversify the economy away from just financial services and tourism. And he envisioned really a tech renaissance in New York City, where he put money, he put city money into real estate, he put city money into programming. He has is launching a new engineering school with Cornell and the Technion from Israel in New York City, essentially creating a very interesting, in the last 3 or 4 years, sort of technological renaissance in New York City, which interestingly exists alongside huge industry verticals in New York City, which really exist nowhere else in the world in terms of their concentration. There are over 50 Fortune 500s in New York City alone, and there are many multinational corporations who are headquartered in New York City from around the world. And this is a very interesting mix of sort of a very dynamic tech sector existing alongside these industry verticals who are basically trying to speak to each other and try to do business with each other. And our role as the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service with the Accelerator program is essentially to bring the Canadian companies into that ecosystem and connect them to these large global value chains via these Fortune 500s and other large companies in New York City. So essentially, what we're doing is we're fielding a recruitment and selection process, which I would like to tell you, if you are a company or know of companies, is a very streamlined process of a 2-page application. Let me repeat that. It's a 2-page application, which we turn around in about 2 weeks. Okay, it's very fast selection. It's not the Government of Canada selecting winners. We have a vetting process for the companies, which goes back to the pipeline in Canada, to the private sector and the accelerators, as well as in-market in New York City, to vet the companies and to decide which ones would be appropriate for the New York market. The criteria, for your information, is that the companies have to have a product. It can't be in beta. They have to have a product. They have to have a team in place. It can't be just 1 or 2 people. The companies are usually 5, 6, 7 people, and they have to have some revenue, not necessarily just from investors, but actual customers, maybe in Canada, maybe from somewhere else in the world, maybe in the United States. So they have actually a functioning company that they come into the market with. And most importantly, they have a vision for why they need to be in New York City. What is it about New York City that they're trying to actually access? So on the basis of that criteria, we quickly select the companies, as I say, after a 2-page application form. I like to emphasize that because we really try to cut the bureaucracy very quickly in order to move the companies through. And they come down for this 1-week boot camp where we essentially accelerate their network. We're introducing them through sort of fireside chats, through panels, through pitch clinics. and various mentoring that we do with our about 60 to 70 plus in-market mentoring network. We introduce them to Fortune 500s. We introduce them to brand journalism to help them access the ecosystem in New York City. We introduce them to other serial entrepreneurs who've made it in New York City, other Canadians who've made it in New York City, to essentially get them acclimatized to the market and what they need to expect, what level of ambition they need to have, what kind of language they need to use in the New York market. And then we sort of send them out into the market, and they use those initial introductions as a way to build their network and to get going in the market. And then they spend 3 months essentially trying to move toward their goals of, as I've noted here, client acquisition and or funding. Those are really the two things we look at having them achieve in the New York market. So that's for digital media. We've essentially had over 30 companies so far. Generally, over the year, we're servicing about 300 Canadian digital media companies in New York City, but we, as I say, pick about 24 a year for all this accelerated or service plus type programming to allow them to really access the market and push them toward success. Our point, of course, is not just to have an accelerator for the sake of startups. We're actually trying to get these companies to grow revenue and to grow employment in Canada and to move either toward an exit or even further growth worldwide. So that's really our objectives. We provide the boot camps, pitch clinics, mentoring, as we've noted here, and networking, and then at the end of the program, we also provide a demo night where they pitch to potential clients and investors. So that's what we're doing on the digital media side. We're housing that that accelerator at General Assembly, which is a large sort of tech ecosystem accelerator in New York City, which has tons of interesting programming our companies can access on a discounted basis. So it's a very exciting place for them to be, and I'd like to say that the companies really, I think, find the programming extremely useful, and we've had a number of great successes from the point of view of both client acquisition and investment in the market. The ones who are most successful, we're finding, essentially spend time in the market and really are able to articulate what solution they're trying to solve, what their technical solution is, and how they can situate themselves in the competitive landscape and what's different about them. Those companies tend to do the best, we're finding. Now, just to say, we also run a CTA in Health IT in Philadelphia, a similar programming. We've located in Philadelphia for two reasons. We have a very strong trade commissioner, Vincent Finn, in Philadelphia, who is very embedded into the health IT market there. And Philadelphia itself is second to Boston in having a large concentration of insurers, hospitals, and universities focused in the health and life sciences field. And because of the Affordable Health Care Act, or also known as Obamacare, in the United States, there is a huge drive for technology absorption to cut costs, essentially, in this sector. So there's very interesting opportunities in health IT in areas like data flow between hospitals, outpatient follow-up, real-time clinical information, patient compliance, and clinical workflow improvement. It's a very interesting and dynamic area, and we house that accelerator at a life sciences center in Philadelphia. Same application process, quick, with a pipeline through our trade commissioner in Philadelphia. So if you're interested in that one, do let me know. We also run a clean tech accelerator. Now that one we're doing a little bit differently because clean tech really is not tech. It requires much more of a runway. It's more similar to life sciences insofar as these companies have product, right? They're in manufacturing, basically, companies trying to get clients to essentially adopt technology that could take years to implement. So that one we found we couldn't just do an in-market physical accelerator. It just didn't work well. So we went with a hybrid model of a virtual accelerator that we do actually in collaboration with our consulate in San Francisco. It's a very interesting model where we have them on webinars being introduced to potential clients, corporates and strategics and investors over a 16-week period, covering a number of different topics, including business revenue models, customer acquisition strategy, efficient growth strategy, trends for financing for the next stage, positioning for the perfect exit, and so on. I've listed some of them there. We're taking about 12 companies per cohort twice a year with San Francisco. So the virtual webinar aspect is for 4 months. And then in New York, we have 2 seats at one of the only clean tech accelerators in the country. There's only really 2 in the country. One is in Denver, linked to the federal lab there, and the other is in New York at NYC Acre. Because clean tech has had such challenges, as you probably all know, in adoption. There's really been a number of different problems there. And we're really trying to break the adoption problem, both from the investment point of view and to get corporations to adopt technology that will benefit their bottom line and be greener. I mean, that's essentially the point of clean tech. That's a huge challenge. So we only take 2 companies of the graduates into New York City who actually have a potential demo or actually have a white paper or some kind of commitment from a potential client that they can work on in market. If they don't have a potential link like that set up coming out of the webinar, we don't take them because the runway and the investment is so significant in clean tech that you really need to have an opportunity to justify the resources to bring someone down into the market for several months at a time. So that's an interesting model that we run with San Francisco. The market is different in San Francisco than it is on the East Coast, and sort of each coast is kind of learning from each other in that accelerator. So that's another interesting model that we're working on. So essentially, we're running these 3 accelerators, again, fast recruitment process, not selected by the Government of Canada, but by partners in Canada and in market. And we're really trying to link, for all those accelerators, the technology to the global value chains in these huge corporates in market. Okay, that's really the big, interesting thing that's going on in New York City. Tough nut to crack, but the value of the Trade Commissioner Service is that we're in market, we live there, we know the market, we're working the market constantly. So we think we have some significant value added to give to the companies when they come into market. And the accelerators really help us to focus the companies because they spend so many months actually in market. For the Digital Media Accelerator, we're finding that the companies, about a third of them now, have actually opened business development markets in New York City. The big thing about New York is you have to be in New York. New Yorkers don't like it when you fly back and forth. You have to be there in that sort of intense New York ecosystem and get to know people and build relationships in order to actually get traction. And as I said earlier, it's really the companies who do that who get the best results. So that's what we encourage them to do. And by and large, that is in fact what they're doing. That's about it. That's my name and contact information. If you have interest in these programs, I'd really suggest you get in touch with us. And we actually are well linked back into the pipeline in Canada through accelerators. So if you're a company or know companies involved in accelerators in Canada, we're probably in touch with those accelerators and can help you link to these markets abroad, not only in New York, which I'm speaking about, but to other accelerators in Boston, San Francisco, and for clean tech in Denver. So that's it. Thank you very much. And any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison, for that informative presentation. This concludes our export and procurement presentation for this evening. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and presentations begin again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in this theater for other partners in the export and procurement area. And we hope that you can stay for the opening reception that starts around 6:15 today, but there's another session starting at 5 here. Thank you very much.